Welcome to Election Recon. It is Saturday, October 3rd, 2020, 31 days until Election Day here in the United States. And as the intro said, I'm Josh Whitfield, your host, and we are broadcasting from Waterford, California. It is 8 p.m. on the west coast of the United States, and we are very, very happy to have you on board for this, our second full-length episode of the Election Recon podcast. And what a week it has been. Absolutely insanity. Total insanity in politics has this week been. We thought earlier in the week that most of what we were going to talk about tonight was the crazy, hostile, insane debate that took place on Tuesday night. And I said last week that it was going to be meaningful, impactful, could have an effect on the election. How wrong was I? It will have zero effect on the election, we think. And it wasn't even a debate. And I know, and we'll get into it later. But I know the zealots on both sides thought that debate was great for them. I promise you it was great for no one. But we'll get into that later. Otherwise, I'm going to mess up the whole lead segment. I digress. We're going to have to talk about the fact that the President of the United States has COVID and that we really don't know how good or bad it is. Despite him, his campaign, even the minority leader, Kevin McCarthy, all saying that he's doing great. It's not that bad. It's mild symptoms. There's a report out of the Associated Press today that said that the president had to be put on supplemental oxygen Friday night. We know he was transported to Walter Reed Army Medical Center for treatment. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how a North Carolina Senate candidate can't keep it in his pants and how that's going to affect the race in North Carolina for U.S. Senate. We're going to talk about the parties and how much money they're spending in different Senate targets and how that's going to likely affect the race and how both parties look at the battleground map for the U.S. Senate. We're going to talk about some economic news in the United States and how that could affect the races. And we're going to have a conversation tonight. We're going to have a conversation tonight about where we are as a society when it comes to politics and just general relations amongst people in our country today. Of course, you probably already noticed a new thing. Producer Jeff, who, again, is responsible for all of our technical difficulties. That's the Marine side of his Marine Army hybrid career. Producer Jeff, boy, it has been another night of technical difficulties, but here we are, still bringing you this podcast. And producer Jeff had the great idea this week to go, the show's going well. We're up over 300-400 listeners and viewers throughout the week, unique downloads, blah, blah, blah. You know what would help YouTube out, which is lagging apparently, what would help YouTube out with our 12 subscribers or however many there are today, is this, if we filmed you doing the podcast. That's what Jeff said. So you get all this, and I get a camera right here in my home office as I do this face made for radio. Is going to be broadcasted now for the weekly podcast. So, if you don't like what you see here, you can blame producer Jeff. Another new thing that we're going to start doing is we are actively looking for a co-host for this show. And we're going to actively start rotating in guests every week. And our very first guest is going to be very special to me. His name is Matt Austin. And we served together in the United States Army. In fact, he was there the day, Easter Sunday 2008, when I was wounded and blown up in Iraq. And he was a part of the team that did what had to be done to make sure that I got the care that I needed so this beautiful face made for radio could be in front of you today. And he'll be our first guest. And I'm looking forward to that because I think it's important that America hears the voice of real veterans about the state of politics and relations in the nation. I have not talked to Matt. We just texted and I asked if he'd be on the show. I have not given him any talking points. I have no idea what Matt has to say, but I know that when we served together in the military, well, let's just say his perspective always unique, and he always forges his own path. And those of us we serve together that may listen to this podcast are going to chuckle hearing that Matt Austin is going to be my first guest here on the Election Recon podcast, because there's one word that I could use to describe Matt. It's he is definitely his own man. Of course, we're going to break down in the show the state of the race for president, U.S. Senate, U.S. House, governors, and state legislatures. We're going to take an in-depth look at what our model did this week, and it was a busy week for our model, if not so much shifting the scoreboards that much. But the model did have a very busy week, and we're going to update that. We enhanced our model a little bit, and we're going to talk to you about that as well. So, very busy show, and we're very happy to have all of you here. So right now, what I'd like to do is go to the phones and bring in Mr. Matt Austin and just have a conversation about those topics that we just mentioned. Again, Matt, just to give you a little backstory on Matt Austin. He and I again served together in the military. He got out, went to the University of Alabama, got a degree, and then, like me, because you know what they say about being in the mafia, every time you try to get out, they pull you back in. Started working right back for the federal government. We just can't get enough. Anyway, so Matt has gone around the federal government working various jobs, and I think that his view is relevant to what's going on, and I'm just dying to hear what Matt Austin has to say. So without wasting any more time, let's go ahead and bring Matt Austin in on the phone. And Matt, I do believe you are calling in from Minneapolis, Minnesota. Is that right?
That's correct. That's where I work, but I do live about 40 miles south of Minneapolis because I like it better here. Staying out of the city is important.
Yeah, I completely understand that. Large groups of people together in a chaotic fashion, I'm not big on that either.
Well, yeah, Minneapolis has some very interesting things that have been going on there in the last few years, and it's just not that friendly a place. And so, though I do work there, and I have to go there several times a month, and I get my health care there, I generally avoid it.
Well, Matt, I gave a little bit of your backstory earlier before you came on the phone. I explained that we served together in the military. I explained that you went to the University of Alabama, that you then got out and started working for the federal government. So go ahead and just pick us up from right there. Tell us what's been going on in your life since graduating college, and what you have going on now in the life of one Matt Austin.
Sure. Yeah, like you said, I actually went to a 2-year college when I got out of the military. Got a paralegal degree, and then I transferred to the University of Alabama, which I graduated in 2015. Roll Tide. We're going to have to put that out there. And then, I started working for DHS in Minneapolis, the Minneapolis St. Paul field office for USCIS, which is commonly known as immigration, where the people that pass out the green cards and all that stuff. I did that for 3.5 years, and then I recently, about 2 years ago, started working for the VA out of the St. Paul, Minneapolis field office, which is at Fort Snelling, St. Paul. And I've been doing that as a veteran service representative. We are the ones that process claims for veteran benefits, and I specialize in pension and survivor benefits mostly. So most of the people I work with are Vietnam veterans, some World War II veterans, and their surviving spouses. And there are a few that are actually from our age group as well. But yeah, I've been doing that for a couple of years. I'm also I'm big on the Blue Water Navy team for Vietnam veterans. I'm kind of a specialist there. I have this little tool that I use to go through military records and place people within 12 nautical miles of the Vietnam coast, in which case we can grant exposure to Agent Orange then.
it always just baffles and amazes me how we draw lines for things. Like who the hell came up with 12 nautical miles? The VA is like, oh, listen, if you served on a ship and you were within 12 nautical miles of the Vietnam coast, you have Agent Orange exposure. But if you were 12 miles and 1 foot, sorry, you lost out on the benefits. You weren't close enough. Just, it always boggles my mind. Anyway, moving on. You and I, while we served together, you and I had a lot of time to discuss everything possible, including politics. And I suspect that you enjoyed debating politics with me, and you, if only to get a rise out of me from time to time.
Yeah.
So, I couldn't help but think about you during the debate Tuesday night, and I thought to myself, man, I like, what did you think? First, did you watch the debate? And secondly, what did you think about these two yokels just talking over each other, interrupting each other, and just cracking on each other for an hour and a half Tuesday night?
I did watch I think approximately the first 30 minutes of it or so. I've obviously heard about the exciting highlights for the last few days via the media, both on the internet, social media, and on TV. And yeah, I couldn't believe it. I was kind of shocked at just the level of unprofessional behavior, I guess I would say. It seemed like a couple of kids just arguing. And really, just seemed like neither one had a very solid point. It was more like, let's just try to, one up the other. It seemed very childish. Not a lot of, actual dialogue going on there. And I feel this way with the president. A lot of times I wish I could just kind of like be a puppet and tell him what to say. Be like, hey man, maybe if you said this, people would actually listen. But he generally goes the other direction of what I maybe would have said when I was 6 or 8 or maybe even 10 years old. So, and Joe Biden, wow. It was hard to kind of listen to him. I mean, he did seem a little bit more reserved and composed, but, to say that he doesn't support the Green New Deal when his running mate co-sponsored the bill, it's kind of like, well, okay. And, also his running mate is on record of, saying she wants to defund the police, and Joe Biden said, I don't want to do that. And things like that kind of make, I think, a lot of people in America kind of cringe, because you're like, I think the police kind of serve a important role in society. And, yeah, so other than that, I thought it was great,
what I find interesting about just kind of your perspective on it is, which I think is comparable to many veterans from our generation, from our war, the Iraq, Afghanistan eras point of view, is that we, guys like you and I, have been around the world. We have seen things, we have done things, good and bad. You and I had some pretty good times together in Germany, and we had some, less than good, some crazy, some, intense times in Iraq together. But we've just seen things, And I think what's crazy is most of America, especially people on the right, assume that the military is this juggernaut, this standard bearer for the conservative movement, and it couldn't be anything further from the truth in my experience. I just don't believe that. And I've not experienced that. I think we're generally pretty libertarian in the sense of, listen, you whiny, bitchy civilians sometimes, my goodness, this is what you're crying about? There's so much bigger problems in the world. I think that's our point of view when we see politics and society in America from time to time. But that being said, I think really most veterans out there, especially from our generation, are libertarian in the sense that it's don't mess with me and I won't mess with you. And if you mess with me, you're going to get your ass kicked. I mean, am I right about that?
Oh, yeah. And we're just so diverse. People don't understand that. It's like, man, we got somebody from every corner of the globe, it seems, every corner of the country, every color, religion, whatever, and we all got to live in like one room, that's 20 by 20 for months on end, and you try to tell us that we don't have some issues, and we don't have to adapt. It's like they try to make it all seem like, oh, we're just white bread, conservatives, like you said, that just fall in line, and that's just not the case. And also, the interesting thing is that we're all stupid or something, especially if we're grunts. I've kind of figured out that as a Cab Scout, I guess we fall in the category of being grunts, and even other veterans think we're stupid sometimes, and it's like, I have kind of a cerebral job now, and we run into some of the Air Force people that don't think I should be able to push buttons as quick as I can, and it's like, well, hate to break it to you, but
stop. Because just think about it. Think about that. Say, because I get that too. Oh, you were a ground pounder. You're a grunt. Blah 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 blah. But think about this. Just look at our platoon, bud. Look at our platoon. I would take any debate team in the world against you, me, Brandon Boder, and I don't know, Ozzy Reichert.
Right.
And I'd wish them the best of luck because I think they're going to be in trouble.
Yeah, right.
But I want to transition just a little bit here for the sake of time. We, again, going back to the stuff that you and I have seen, and all veterans, we've left the protective borders of the United States. We've seen evil and oppression on a scale that just does not exist here in the United States, despite what society here would scream is happening. I mean, we've been out, we've seen it. We know how the word blessed people are, the advantages that you have if you live in the United States. We've seen the evil, this unimaginable evil that is sectarian violence. And we have all these people out here. And this is something I'm going to end the show with tonight, but I want to talk to you about it before you leave the phone. You got all these people on the right and the left who are arming themselves, militias, Antifa, Proud Boys, all of this stuff. And I feel like it's more from the right than the left, but there's people out there glorifying this idea of a second civil war, of a second civil conflict in which is inevitable and it has to happen. And I don't think people know what they're talking about. I don't think people know what they're asking for or glorifying, because you and I have seen the evils of sectarian violence on a political and religious level that it just baffles my mind that people, there are even some people out there pushing to have it. It's just insane to me.
Oh, right. I completely agree with your analysis there. I've seen this, and it's shocking that people think it's so easy, that they think it's like a video game or like TV or a movie, that wow, war is going to be great. And I think the division in this country is very apparent, and I don't understand why people don't realize that it is such a bad thing to try to promote a civil war on both sides. You're right. I don't like extremes on either side, right or left. And I've seen right wingers that are freaking out, acting badass because they got a 357 in their pocket and they don't have any clue that it's all about shot placement. It doesn't matter what kind of gun you got, and half of them couldn't pull it out even if they wanted to. And the point is, it's like the extreme on the left is obviously out there as well. I mean, come on, these people are against the police, like they're the enemy. None of the statistics support what is being said by people like Antifa and the things that are going on in Portland and Seattle. Any of those left wing zealots aren't nothing they're saying really holds any water either. So what seems to be very interesting is it doesn't matter what side you're on, but if that other side disagrees with you, they're completely wrong, and not just because of what they're specifically saying. It's like, if you disagree on one point, from now on, everything else you say is completely wrong, and it's complete nonsense, really, on both sides. But yeah, I don't think a lot of these people have really researched history. The Civil War was horrible. Our Civil War was so bad, no one else wanted to get involved in it, and that's kind of a interesting thing because it doesn't usually that's usually not how it goes historically throughout the world. Is there's always somebody messing with something. But the bottom line is the most deadly days, I think to this day, is still the Battle of Antietam, which I did a report on back in college, is still the deadliest day in United States military history, including World War I and World War II. And we were fighting each other, and I think people have lost sight of how horrible that is.
Absolutely, absolutely. That is the point. And again, I'm going to talk about this at the end of the show, but I continue to see this glorification of this idea, whether it's a second revolution on the left or defense of the Union on the right. Of traditional values on the right. I see this glorification of this idea that we're going to fight a civil war. And you and I both know it ain't going to be like the last Civil War. I don't think these yokels who keep talking about this stuff on social media and whatever on the extremes, I don't think they have any idea. White, black, brown, left, right, Republican, Democrat, center, anyone talking about a civil war, I don't think they have a clue. No clue. Because you and I have seen exactly what urban sectarian violence under a weak government. We've seen the atrocities and catastrophic results of that in Iraq. And you and I both know that's an evil that nobody wants to see.
Right. Exactly. And it's like if you think about how Vietnam or Bosnia, any of the wars that have happened in the last 30, 40 years, what we're talking about sectarian violence, where we can't tell who the enemy is because, like you said, they're not wearing a blue or a gray coat. They're just anywhere. And you look at that happening in the United States, where we have I have enough guns for 3 or 4 people, just myself. I mean, there's so many firearms, so much ammunition all over this country. It's not like anywhere else in the world. If we got into a full-scale situation like that, wow, I can't even imagine how bad it would be or how long it could go on.
Well, what do you think the chances are of a second Civil War actually happening?
I'm one of those people that I believe that calmer heads will prevail in a lot of these types of situations. I try to stay away from the extremism, but yeah, is it possible? Yes, but honestly, we don't have a leader that's good enough on either side. We don't have an Abraham Lincoln or a Adolf Hitler type person who honestly has enough charisma to get enough people to follow them. There's just not out there. And I'm sorry to say, on the right or the left. And I think it's a lot of people that are very insecure and they don't really know what they're talking about, uneducated on both sides, that are the ones that are stirring the pot. And like I said, I try to say, hey, I think the real people in this country that are really, able to stand up for themselves will prevail over these, fools that think, oh yeah, let's just blow each other up. It'll be great, just like Call of Duty or something.
No, I think that's absolutely right, Matt. I've seen it since you and I have gotten out of the military. There has just been a continual decline in how Americans treat each other. It used to always be how Americans treat the rest of the world and how the rest of the world treat us. We treat each other like crap in this country right now, and it's not good. Of course, that's generalizing. It's obviously there's a lot of good people doing a lot of good things out there, but it seems to be less and less the good things, and more the hate-filled rhetoric, divisiveness, my tribe against your tribe at all costs, and there can only be one left standing. And I think if our country is to make it long term, we're going to have to get past that, this tribalism. What can we do to get back to a level of sanity in this country?
Wow, that is the hard question, isn't it? Honestly, we got to start believing in ourselves again. There used to be this kind of and we felt it. I think we felt it overseas when you're surrounded by thousands and thousands of people from somewhere else, when you're out in the middle of nowhere and there's just the 16 of us and we got is each other. We felt, hey, this connection, even though we're all looking different, we're all from all over, we had this connection that we're all Americans and we all kind of believe the same thing. And right now that's shattered. We can't all get behind one good football team or one good athlete or one good music, superstar or something anymore. And I felt like we had that when I was younger in this country, that there was this commonality of we're all Americans. Like Ghostbusters came out when I was a kid, and everybody fucking liked Ghostbusters. If you didn't like Ghostbusters, there's something wrong with you.
Yes, exactly right. If you don't like the original Ghostbusters, you are a communist. I said it.
That's what I'm talking about. I mean, you're a little, I know you're a little young, but I was like 6, man, and I mean, everybody liked Ghostbusters. Everybody liked Gizmo. It's like Baby Yoda. They need more Baby Yoda, and everybody needs to realize this is America, and we came up with this shit, and we're the best place in the world. Something like that. But that common bond that kind of brings us together, and it's pretty clear there's obviously this division in sports. Even you're seeing it. My 2 favorite teams are playing for the NBA Finals, and I have not watched it because of the bullshit that keeps going on. Because I'm like, this is ridiculous. Why did sports become political for one sport, but it's not for every sport? Because obviously not everybody believes your point of view. And I think we're seeing a lot of this stuff being forced down our throats, and we need to all just remember who we really are, and that's Americans, and we all, and how to get us to all do that, I'm not really sure.
Well, that's the $1 million question, isn't it?
Exactly. And the rest of us, the real people, us, me and you, all of our friends, whoever we know, we need to try a little bit every day. That's, I guess, the best thing I can say is we got to try to, remember and remind people every day, in our lives that we can. And let's just hope that thing spreads like wildfire, because American spirit, the idea of America sells itself. It's freedom. It's the ability to say what you want and do what you want. And somehow we've lost the idea of that being the greatest thing out there, but it really is. And you and I know that because we've been to other parts of the world where you can't even do that. How are you going to vote? However the oldest guy in the village tells you to vote. Okay.
And that's not even a joke.
Exactly. That's how they do it, you know?
Well, I don't think you can really sum it up any better than that. That is a perfect example. Matt, I want to thank you so much for being a part of episode 2 of this project of the Election Recon podcast. My friend, I think it's just fitting that you were our first guest. Thank you so much for joining me tonight.
Glad I could help, sir, and I hope you have a wonderful evening, and keep doing the right thing.
Thanks, Matt. You too. Thanks for everything, buddy. That was Matt Austin, who was our first ever guest, phoning in all the way from the great state of Minnesota. As you can see, I have started smoking my cigar of the night, which unsolicited advertisement here comes from my good friend Rocky Patel, who I've had the pleasure to meet in person. Love his cigars, an excellent human being. So, I'm just going to let you know. Cigar of the night, Rocky Patel, Special Reserve, Sun-Grown Maduro. Excellent. And it just keeps the demons at bay for me. So I often find that I have to smoke when I'm talking to Austin at any time. I'm just kidding. But we have a lot of history, Matt and I love that guy to death. Again, Matt, thanks for joining us. We're going to go ahead and transition now because I want to talk a little bit about some of these items that we talked about with Matt. I'm going to finish with that. I know a lot of you are tuning in to get the state of the race and what's going on. So I'm going to transition a little bit now to the state of the race here at Election Recon. We're going to take a first look at the race for president. Excuse me. The RCP average, RealClearPolitics.com average, has the race currently Biden plus 7.4 versus 2016 when Trump was running against Hillary Clinton. That's better for the Democrats right now by 4.2%. That is statistically important. A lot of people out there keep telling me, a lot of you wrote in or those people that know me that are listening to the show, text me and go, oh, this is all nonsense. You're listening to the polls. It's going to be another right-wing blowout. Trump's going to win. There's just no way. There's no way that Trump loses this thing or Republicans lose. And I'm telling you, there's absolutely a way. It is very possible. It is not just very possible. As of today, as of this moment on Saturday night, I'm telling you that the president and the Republican Party are losing the election according to every piece of data that we can find. That's just the truth. It's even if, think about this, even if the pollsters are doing all the same things that they were doing in 2016, they did everything the exact same as they did in 2016, Biden is still up 4.2% higher than Hillary Clinton was. That doesn't mean Trump's going to lose. There is still an eternity to go until Election Day. However, as we discussed last week, more people are going to vote early. More people are going to vote by mail-in ballots than ever before in this election because of what's going on in the world. That's just a fact in the way that it is. So the snapshot in time now becomes way more important than it ever has been before compared to the snapshot on or right before Election Day. There is some good news, though, for Trump in the polls. Last week, he was losing to Biden in the RCP 2016 versus 2020 comparison of the top battleground states combined. This week, Trump is performing 0.3%, rather. 0.3% better at this point in the election than he was against Hillary Clinton in 2016. Favorability. Biden is plus 4 in favorability compared to where Hillary Clinton was in 2016. So if you're the Biden campaign, you have to feel fairly good about those numbers. Taking a look at 538, a model that we respect here tremendously from Nate Silver, who we feel is the absolute best in the game. 538 has it 4 in 5, a 4 in 5 chance that Biden is going to be the next president of the United States. That's higher odds for Biden right now than Clinton had in 2016. So by every measuring stick that we can find, Joe Biden and his campaign is performing better than Hillary Clinton's campaign did in 2016 in the polling data. That's significant. Those are significant margins. Taking a look specifically at the election recon predictive model, our model here at Election Recon, taking a look at president, we still have it this week. Biden, Harris, a projected 291 electoral votes. Trump, Pence, projected 247 electoral votes. We're going to start giving you, for the next 30 days, our projected share of the vote based on how many simulations now we've run in our model. And our model, which we run 10,000 times and get the averages, and we let Lauren do all the math stuff. But pretty much it spits out what our model believes to be the best forecast coming into Election Day. And as of today, the projected share of the vote for Biden is 50.1%, and the projected share of the vote for Trump is 46.9%. That's what we're saying is what it's going to look like when all the votes are counted. Okay, not on Election Day, not in the early vote, but what it's going to look like when everything is certified. 1.6% for Jorgensen, who we should note has come up a half a point in our model since the debate and the craziness of this week, and 1.4% for all the others. Our model has Trump's odds slightly better than the 538 model, and it has Biden pretty much just over a 7 in 10 chance to win on Election Day. Trump just under a 3 in 10 chance to win on Election Day. That's where it stands. A lot of Republicans texting me going, Josh, you're just negative. Listen, I'm not here to have a dog in the fight. We told you from day one, this is the oasis of reality. We're giving you a respite where everyone from all walks of life is welcome to sit here at the oasis and drink from the waters of non-biased information. Our model is not our opinion. Our model is our best guess at where the election is today with all the third-party data that we could put into it. Yes, the third-party data could be wrong. But that's the only way we know how to predict an election. The polls could be wrong, but show me a better way of taking a snapshot in time and trying to pick the election, predict it. I don't know of a better way. Your personal opinion and feelings certainly don't interest me in terms of putting data into my model, whether you're from the right or the left. Taking a look now at the U.S. Senate, our election recon projection scoreboard still stands at Democrats 51, Republicans 49. Our odds for who has the chance to control, we have Democrats just under, slightly less than a 6 in 10 chance at controlling the U.S. Senate. And Republicans just over a 4 in 10 chance of holding on to the Senate. And statistical purposes, for statistical purposes, I should say, the Senate is basically still a toss-up. Very slight advantage to the Democrats. In the U.S. House, it's a different story. We show it. Democrats have just over a 9.5 out of 10 chance of holding on to the House. Republicans, while statistically possible, practically don't really have a chance to take the House in this election. We don't think so. We may look real stupid on Election Day. I don't know. But our model says it's almost a guaranteed bet. Now, I've seen some poker hands that are 98, 99% to win, still lose. You get that perfect draw on the river. But that's what it would take. It would take something spectacular for Republicans to capture the House. Our scoreboard here at Election Recon is still projected 236 seats for Democrats, 199 for Republicans. For governors, not a lot of movement anywhere in governors or state legislatures, so I'm just going to tear through those quickly. Here at the Election Recon predictive model, we are still projecting 27 governor's mansions to be in the hands of Republicans at the end of the election, 23 for the Democrats. Upper chambers for state legislatures, 29 for Republicans, 21 for Democrats. Lower chambers, 27 in the hands of Republicans, 22 for Democrats. The discrepancy there between upper and lower chambers is because we put the unicameral chambers or the states that only have one state legislative chamber. They're not bicameral like everyone else. That we put them in the upper model, which is Nebraska, if anybody was wondering. So that's where the state of the election is. That's where our model is. Updates you can see on our YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Every day we run our model. It goes through its simulations, and we update any shifts in ratings. Again, we rate seats safe, likely, lean, and tilt. And we're going to give you practically daily updates on where our model is from here till the end of the election. You can see Monday through Friday those quick. They're about 5 to 10 minute videos on the state of the race, and we just feed you straight data there. And that's where the state of the race is right now for this national election, which is going to be crazy. It's going to be crazy because we literally had two crazy people debate each other Tuesday night. Don't get me wrong. I understand completely that the President of the United States came in like a bull in a china shop intentionally to just jack that entire debate up. I felt initially bad when I covered this thing for an hour and a half with KFIV, 1360 Power Talk Radio, where I was given the task of analyzing that debate. What was there to analyze? It was the most insane debate I've ever seen. And then to sit there and watch conservative pundits go, that's how the debates were supposed to be, and the president's campaign and spin room go in there and go, he just dominated him. He dominated him. Dominated him in what? Speaking time? Talking over the other guy? It was a real loss, in my opinion, for anybody that wanted to know where these two guys stand. And initially, yes, I felt very bad for Chris Wallace, the host, the moderator, I should say. I felt really bad about it. But then as I went back and I thought about it and I rewatched the debate, I feel, shame on Chris Wallace too. Because he injected himself personally in there. He allowed, if there was one person that should have stayed out of the mud, it was Chris Wallace. That's his whole shtick. But he couldn't. He allowed the president's antics, followed by the inability of Joe Biden to also be an adult in the room. Joe Biden saying some things that you just shouldn't say about the guy who holds the office of President of the United States. They said things about each other, and then Chris Wallace got in the mud. So at first, I kind of rolled my eyes when the Trump campaign and some conservative commentators go, Trump had to debate Biden and Chris Wallace. But I think there's some truth to that. I think Chris Wallace got pissed off, and who wouldn't? If I was the moderator, oh my goodness gracious, I would have put my campaign hat on, get the drill sergeant knife hand out, and I would have been like, shut the up. Shut up. You agreed as gentlemen to these rules, and you're going to follow them, or I'm going to take my happy ass out of here, and you'll see when the red light on the cameras turn off. You guys want to do this? Fine. What the hell am I doing here moderating? That's what I would have done if I was Chris Wallace. act that way. And what a shame. What a shame for people, as few of them as there are, that tuned into that thing to try to help them decide who they're going to vote for. People who wanted to hear where these guys are on the issues. Just wasn't there. Maybe it was a good strategy for Trump. I don't know. We'll have to find out. But certainly, that debate was a hot frickin' mess from start to finish. And I really don't know if either side accomplished anything. I don't know. Trump has COVID. Trump is COVID positive. And I am just disgusted by, just as I was disgusted by some people on the right who celebrated the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I am equally as disgusted by people on the left, some Hollywood celebrities, who are either A, actively rooting for the death of the President of the United States. Are you kidding me? It's one thing not to like the guy. It's one thing not to like what he says. It's another thing not to like what he stands for. But to sit there and be like, I really hope he dies. It would be fitting and ironic if he died from COVID. What kind of person are you? The president's still a human life, whether you like him or find him disgusting. It doesn't matter. We have to return to some common sense human dignity here. If you're one of those people that are rooting for the president to die, you ought to check yourself in the mirror before you ever criticize the president of the United States again. And even to maybe a lesser extent, but those of you out there who are making fun of the fact that the president has a serious disease. What are we talking about here? That's the level of where we're at in this country. We're not going to debate the issues and try to convince people who has the better vision for our country. It's pretty much, oh, fuck me, no, fuck you. Excuse my language. I know it's an explicit podcast and we have it rated explicit. I'm not trying to cuss for effect's sake, but I really want to get the point across. That's where it's at. F you, and I'm right and you're wrong, and you're evil and I'm righteous. So much to the point that we've gotten to this country where we celebrate the death of a Supreme Court justice who dedicated her life to the service of our nation, whether you agreed with her decisions or not. Or we're rooting for the death of a sitting president of the United States, a duly elected president of the United States. It's insanity. We've got to find our way back to the light, folks. We've got to. I don't even know where to begin. Not to mention taking a quick look at the Senate race in North Carolina. There always has to be one. There always has to be one. Always has to be a sex scandal in an American election. Democrat senatorial candidate from North Carolina, Cal Cunningham, who is challenging Republican incumbent Senator Tom Tillis, has got to be that guy. There's always that guy, or sometimes girl. But in this case, he's that guy who has been caught red-handed, was forced to come out this week and admit that he sent inappropriate sexts, sexual texts, to a woman who is not his wife. How are you I see this all the time. I've seen this in my career for a while. I get so frustrated. How dare you? How dare you have the audacity to ask for people's trust? You're asking to be one of 100 decision makers in the United States Senate, and you can't even be trusted to keep your pants zipped up. And I'm telling you right now, Mr. Cunningham, You've made a mistake here. You are on your way to probably flipping that state, taking a Republican out, replacing a Democrat, and you have probably hurt your chances. Because I'm telling you, women voters are the kingmakers in the United States today. Exponentially, they continue to outvote men in every election. And that gap is widening, not shortening. And I'm telling you right now, there's no fury known more in there. I've only been married 5 years, but God, I know one thing. I know this. Hell knows no fury like a woman hath scorned. And I'm telling you right now, buddy, your woman has reason to be scorned on you. Always one. It's very interesting to take a look at what else is going on in the Senate. Races, despite sexual impropriety. Republicans pouring a ton of money into Michigan right now. A ton of money. And I said this on the last podcast. Last Saturday night. Mark my words. There is a real possibility that Republicans flip that seat. I'm telling you right now, if Donald Trump finds a way to carry the state of Michigan again, I suspect that the Republican challenger Jones is going to unseat the Democrat Senator Peters out of Michigan. That race is tightening every day, and the Republicans obviously see it, and they're throwing a crap ton of money. Same situation in South Carolina, where nobody, myself included, ever thought Lindsey Graham was ever in any real jeopardy. That race is practically a tie. The Dems are pouring money through Swing Left and Act Blue. Two very efficient fundraising arms. The Democrat challenger Harrison has run nearly a flawless campaign, in my opinion, so far. And Lindsey Graham is not just an institution in South Carolina, he's practically an institution in the Senate. And there's every possibility that Lindsey Graham could be unseated. Joni Ernst, Republican senator in Iowa, that race is trending away from her in our model and in the polls. Teresa Greenfield also running a very solid campaign, the Democratic challenger there. In Arizona, Democrat challenger Kelly, an astronaut, military service member, is also running a near flawless campaign and overperforming the polling in every respect in Arizona. And yes, somebody wrote in, and shame on me, you're right, to the person who wrote in, I forgot to mention last week that Kelly is the husband of former Congresswoman Gabby Giffords. So yes, he does have some political experience, and to your point in the message that you sent to us, when I said he had no political experience, I meant him personally, but obviously, yes, from the outside in, he got a look at the political life through his wife's eyes and experience. And that should not be discounted. So shame on me for missing that last week. In non-election news, the U.S. economy in September added 661,000 jobs, and the unemployment rate has dropped to 7.9%. So it certainly looks like there's a possible real recovery to the COVID recession or the COVID damage going on here. And those numbers certainly help the Republicans and President Trump. If those numbers can improve again for one more month, I suspect that the winds will blow in the favor of the president on Election Day. But I don't know how many early votes are going to help Democrats. And to that point, Democrats are overperforming better than they ever have in history with early voting, and it has Republican strategists concerned. And they ought to be concerned. However, I am not yet convinced that this early vote which is very strongly Democratic right now across the country, they may be cannibalizing their Election Day vote. I think the average Democratic voter is more in favor of voting early and staying away and following social distancing and all this and all that than the average Republican voter that wants to guarantee that their vote isn't a part of any conspiracy theory and they want to pull the lever, and that's just the mindset of the two different sides' worldviews. So I'm not yet as concerned as the rest of these Republican strategists, because it's also possible right now, it could be the start of a blue wave, could be. But it also could be Democrats cannibalizing the vote later on. More Democrats are just choosing to vote early. That's all I mean by that. I don't know yet. I don't think anybody does. Voter registration, on the other hand, to this point, ties into that last point. Doing really well for Republicans. We've been getting constant voter registration data. Iowa, Ohio, Wisconsin, Michigan, Florida, North Carolina, and now California, where Republicans have finally overtaken no party preference to become the second biggest party by registration in California again. So we have solid evidence from coast to coast, border to border, that Republicans are winning the voter registration battle for the first time in a very long time in this country. And I suspect that's because most Democrat campaigns are following the Biden campaign's leadership here on, we're not going to do the typical door-to-door type situation because of COVID, where Republican campaigns are choosing to double down on the old school way of doing things, and right now it's working to their advantage. I don't know an elections operative out there that will tell you anything different, that peer-to-peer networking, grassroots retail politics still plays a very big role, especially in this voter registration. And if the Republicans have a larger pool of voters than what was expected, the polling could be off a little bit. Pollsters would be wise to start taking these voter reg numbers into effect. However, many pollsters would say those people who are registered doesn't mean they're going to vote, and they're right on that too. It's going to be all about turnout, folks. It's going to be all about turnout. That's elections always are. Can you get your people out to vote more than the other side? It comes down to that. It's that simple. Getting it done on a national level is not simple, but the end result's going to be, can your get out the vote effort beat your opponents in many of these races, including for president? But back to this. I want to finish with this. And I know I'm about to be over time. But I want to finish with this. And maybe we're beating a dead horse. I don't know. There's a reason why I asked Matt Austin to come on tonight. I wanted to talk to a veteran. I wanted to talk about where we are today in American society. The hate, the vitriol, the disdain that people have for each other. I see the left idolizing, as they should, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, but they don't hear her words. They don't hear her words, and nor are they following through on her example. You can be a courageous fighter for your cause and still have human dignity and cordial relationships with people who disagree with you, even on issues you're passionate about. Just look at the example of Anton Scalia and Ruth Bader Ginsburg's friendship. We're in a sad spot. And my fear, my absolute fear, no matter what way this election goes, I really don't know how we turn it around. We have to get back to the societal maturity of being able to accept the result of an election, whether we win or lose, without excuses, vitriol, riots, court case, whatever. We have to accept the will of the people. Even if we lose, which oftentimes in democracy that happens. Especially in a country of 400 plus million people. Folks, I have seen the horror, the terror of which you could not comprehend or imagine unless you've been there and experienced it. But talk to somebody who has lived their life over the last 20 years in Iraq. Talk to someone who has lived their life in the last 40 years in Afghanistan. Talk to somebody who defected from North Korea. And I promise you, if you YouTube it, if you Google it, if you find their stories, they will all be shocked and dismayed at the social worldviews that America has about itself. Because they've experienced horror on an unimaginable scale for the average American. To these people who are out there glorifying the possibility of a second civil war, or who are feeding the rhetoric trying to push it to a second civil war, you don't have a fucking clue what you're talking about. And excuse my language again, but you have no clue. And I promise you on the highest emotional level that you don't know. If we're fighting each other in the streets, even on a limited scale, and I'm not talking about Antifa versus Proud Boys or BLM versus MAGA or whatever or whatnot. If Americans are starting to kill each other on a massive scale in the streets in this country, it'll be a horror show of which not even Hollywood could imagine. Because I'm telling you, Hollywood leaves out a lot of the most gut-wrenching things about taking human life. Video games do not accurately portray the severity of that. I've never spoken about this publicly, but I'm going to end this podcast with this. I have had the absolute misfortune and horror in combat of having to shoot probably a 10, 11, 12-year-old, I don't know how old he was, child who was shooting at me and other young children and Iraqi soldiers and my buddies when we were ambushed. The same day, same situation, same firefight in which I was wounded on Easter Sunday in 2008. And I'm telling you, I still deal, even though I would have done the exact same thing, I would have protected everyone else that was in harm's way there. That particular engagement and the fact that I know that I shot a child who was acting as a soldier for terrorists, and God knows how that kid got there. But I'm telling you, it haunts me to this day. That's the type of horror, tragedy, crimes. So all civil wars are crimes. Hell, all wars are crimes. Sometimes war is necessary, but because we can't get along politically in this country, you don't like the politics of the other side, you're going to try to push it to a revolution or civil unrest that's going to or glorify a civil war. You don't know what you're talking about. You need to stop and check yourself. It's easy to have the courage of words, but I'm telling you right now, it's not easy to take a life, and it never should be. I do not want to have to experience some of the things I've experienced and seen in the Middle East. And I doubt, sincerely, that even the most ardent zealot, the biggest mouths on either sides of the extreme, want to see that either. I don't even believe those people with the biggest mouthpieces, who I think are probably the biggest cowards, could even have the stomach to see such things. We can passionately argue. We can passionately fight. We can passionately try to convince each other our way is right in this country. That's the American way. But I'm telling you, if we begin to threaten the integrity of our elections, if we spin conspiracy theories, if we can't accept the results because of how divided we are, we're in deep trouble. So it's my hope and prayer that every American takes a deep breath at the end of this election and thinks of the bigger picture. Because we do have problems in this country, no doubt about it. But compared to a lot of the rest of the world, things are way better off still in the United States than in most places on earth. I'm Josh Whitfield, and this has been the second episode of the Election Recon Podcast. We'll see you again on Monday for another weekday update. Please, please, please like, subscribe, follow, and share if you like our content, if you like the show. Your support is appreciated. You can email us and send in questions. Either DM us on our social medias, which are at Election Recon for Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Or you can email the show at electrecon, electrecon@gmail.com. I'm Josh Whitfield. Good night.